All right, howdy, and welcome to the On the Water podcast. Today I'm joined by On the Water's Jimmy Fee and my old friend Bill Cronan. And there's an interesting story behind Bill Cronan. A lot of you probably never heard of him, but I use the word legendary with very few people. I think Bill is earned the status of a legendary New England fisherman. We first met many years ago. This goes back to probably 1996, 1997. This is right when the striped bass population was coming back, and there was, big fish off the beaches. My cousin and I, Ian Campbell, were both diehard fishermen, and we just got super obsessed with this new fishery. There was striped bass had come back, and, growing up, they were unheard of. You'd see a picture of a striper, and you'd say, you can fish your lifetime and never catch a fish like that. They were on borderline extinct. But anyhow, Ian and I started fishing. We were fishing a lot of the Plymouth beaches at the time, Plymouth, Massachusetts, which is a very fishy place. And one night, Ian met you on a particular beach in Plymouth, which shall remain unnamed. As you often do, you just started telling stories and offered up a wealth of knowledge. And in the world of fishing, there's kind of two kinds of people. There's people that keep secrets and are very tight-lipped with everything they do. And there's people like Bill Cronan that love just to share the experience, share the knowledge, share what they've learned about fishing. And you pretty much gave him a college education on striped bass fishing the Plymouth beaches that night. And we started fishing more, and we started running to other people that talked about you. And you were kind of like this mythical person that was like the striper whisperer, and he was always on big fish. And then I finally got to know you.
I'm flattered that you're saying this stuff. I'm flattered.
It might not be true, but yeah.
Huh?
It sounds good.
Okay.
But no, yeah, to us, you were like, oh my God, I saw Cronan at this spot. This must be a great spot. We got to go back here tomorrow night in the same tide and fish where Bill was fishing, because if Bill was fishing there, it's got to be, there's something going on. So anyway, fast forward a couple of years ago, Ian had got to know you better, and you invited us out in your boat, and we went out and we fished off of Monomoy on Cape Cod. And I don't really particularly remember catching any fish that day. The fishing was pretty terrible. This is right when the seals were kind of coming in really thick and really making a comeback. I remember seeing a ton of seals out there. But despite the lackadaisical fishing, your storytelling was second to none. Both of us just sat there and listened and absorbed stuff like a sponge as you just told stories. And to this day, I think you might be the best fishing storyteller that I've met. And I've met a lot of storytellers and heard a lot of fish stories over the years. But there's something about you and your delivery that are just special. And I also remember the boat that we were out in. I can't remember what kind of boat it was.
A fib fab.
A fib fab. But
Fiberglass Fabrications at Cape Cod, Orleans.
Yeah. And the entire boat was rhino lined, which I still to this day have never seen anything like that. Like the gunnels,
that
the
thing
deck.
Was bulletproof.
It was bulletproof. And it was brilliant. It was like the traction was great. It cleaned up. You didn't even need to wash it.
I never washed it once. I had the thing about 10 years.
And to this day, like, why aren't more people doing this? But I thought that was like the most brilliant thing. But the reason why it was rhino line was because you have done...
The owner, Scott was from Chatham. He had two of them, and he kept on buying F-350 diesel pickup trucks because he had a mussel business all year round, getting mussels. And it was a 25-foot center console, and it had a Mercury 250 on it. It was fast. I mean, it wasn't a bullet,
Yeah.
And he had two of them, and he Line-X'd both of them. Line-X, Rhino Shield, same thing, Oh, yeah, he had all pictures of the giant tuna he would catch with it and everything,
Yeah, but the main reason why you liked that was because you were doing a lot of scuba diving, and you're a very experienced diver. You've dove on more wrecks around Cape Cod and Massachusetts than anybody that I know. And some of your stories about scuba dive and what you've witnessed underwater is, I find, fascinating. So we'd like you to just kind of tell us some of the things that you've learned about fishing that you picked up while you were scuba diving.
The first time I saw it, I wasn't really sure what I was watching. The way that striped bass, how do they catch a sand eel? Well, I got news for you. When you're in the water on the bottom with them and some sand eels swim by you, the speed those little things have, they're like little Speedy Gonzales underwater. Really, you ought to see them go. Yeah, bass rush through them and everything, but you never see them really gobbling and wolfing them down. But the sand eels, I think I was off of Wood End the first time I saw it, and the bass, all of a sudden, they're swimming really slow. Like they're tippy-toeing around like they're metal detectors, like, where are they? And then all of a sudden, the first bass, I stopped. I got on my knees on the bottom, like, what's going on? They look nervous. Why are they nervous? Dun, 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 dun. But all of a sudden, the first bass laid down on his side on the bottom, and he's pounding his tail into the sand. All the sand is puffing up, and he's flushing out the sand eels. And there they are. There's all his buddies right behind him, like a bunch of Hoover vacuum cleaners, sucking down sand eels. They're coming out of their gills out the back, mouthfuls of them. Well, that explains, now I know, how did they get them big, when you get one on the boat and he's vomiting,
you see them when they're just
squid
jam-packed.
Balls of sand. Now I know how they get them with so little effort, so little energy, and such a return of protein, eating all these bait fish.
And the fact that they use teamwork, that's why they school up.
On a good dive at Provincetown, like between Heron Cove Beach and Race Point, it is nothing to be on the bottom. I'm going to be on the bottom at least an hour. I know I'm going to see at least 10,000 bass. I never seen a bunch of big, giant monsters. One time diving on the inside of Provincetown Harbor on a shipwreck called the Flyer 2. And I got right over it. You could see the bow of it, and the stern dropped down to like 65 feet deep. It was laying up on the bank. And I just jumped overboard right on top of it. And it really spooked me at first. I thought they were sharks. I could see like 6, 7 big bodies. Big, thick shoulders. And from a distance, it scared me. It spooked me. And they were all bass. Like humongous. I saw another one right off of Race Point, right at the point where the two lighthouses line up and they get the barrel of the gun right there in like 18, 22 feet of water. I was with Kid Chris Jones. And again, I thought it was a shark, and it was solo in very skinny water, just barely moving across the bottom. And I realized it was a huge bass. Huge. And when you see them on shipwrecks like off Monomoy, they're never I thought it'd be like trout fishing where they would sit behind the big rock in the eddy,
right?
And waiting for the food to kind of come to them. All the big bass, I swear to God, man, I seen thousands and thousands of them. They're in front of the wreck. They're where the current is just ripping it the most. You think they were perforated full of holes because it doesn't seem to have any effect on them. They could just hang there in the current. Meanwhile, you're like, Bugs Bunny, holding on for dear life, you know what I mean? With the current, got you, flat out horizontal, and they could just hang in the middle of it like nothing.
Now, were you diving for artifacts on the wrecks or lobsters? Why would you scuba dive?
Oh, the first time you scuba dive on a shipwreck, the first time, I don't know how to word it, but I'll word it how it felt for me. It was like a big syringe full of rocket fuel and a main line fixed right in there, right into that artery. Wow! Life-changing moment. My life changed the first time. The wreck of the Aransas off Monomoy. I never seen big bass on it. I've seen schools of bass come, hang around for a little bit, and move on. Once August 1st comes, I know, it's like ringing the dinner bell. Here's this flounder all over the place. So it's August 1st, bring the pole spear. Get ready, we're going to load up. And just shooting them left and right. The first big monkfish I ever shot with a spear gun. It was about 40 pounds. I got pictures of it. And it was on the Aransas. Shipwrecks off Monomoy, they have big, big bass on them. It's called the Cannon Wreck. It's off High Head. It's about 300, 350 yards offshore, 18 feet of water. You can look over the side of the boat and see all the bones of it, ribs and everything sticking up out of the sand. That big fish. The wreck of the Pendleton, it was a Type 2 tanker. It was 504 feet long. It had a sister ship sink off Nantucket. They never found it. 504-foot long monster. Can't find it. Robert Ballard, Midway, trying to find the Japanese sunken aircraft carriers. See an aircraft carrier? 2 of them. Can't find them.
It's wild.
No. The wreck of the Alva. It's in shallow water. The bow is pretty majestic on the bottom. The way the bow comes up, it just spears right up. And underneath, and it's all pebbles from the current just blowing the sand everywhere, and it's all small pebbles. And biggest bass I ever saw was there. That was just, oh my God. First thing you look for on the shipwreck really is lobsters. The wife is always happy when you come home with a cooler full of lobsters and nothing in the cooler's under 3 pounds, But then artifacts and the biggest, dishes, china, silverware, teapots, clay smoking pipes. Found a harmonica one time, and it had like the old copper Victrola copper phone, megaphone on it.
Oh yeah.
It was on the harmonica, but it was too far gone. Torpedo bottles, round bottom bottles, case gin bottles. Oh, I got a 3-year-old. I got a shipwreck bottle outside in the truck. I wanted to bring it in here, put it on the table. Oh. I forgot it.
We got a picture of it.
It's from the HMS Cerberus. It sank in 1775. We weren't a free country. We were under British rule. The Boston Tea Party hadn't started. And I got one of the bottles for outside in the truck, wrapped in a blanket in the back seat.
Wow.
I'll show it to you before I leave. Yeah.
What's the biggest lobster you ever caught diving?
I got 3 of them over 16 pounds.
Wow.
2 of them I had mounted. The biggest one I ever got, I had it mounted right at the end. John Matthews mounted them. He did all the fish mounts that was in Grandma's Pies. And I walked in there. That was the most beautiful fish mounts I ever seen. And he had giant lobsters. And I was looking at the lobsters like, wow, if I ever get a big one, if I ever gets, the gods on Olympus shine down on me, this is where I'm going to go find this guy. And we became really good friends. The biggest one I ever got was right at the end. It was almost 17 pounds.
Wow.
But
that's a big lobster.
The second one I sent to him, he became the director of taxidermy for the Smithsonian Institute. He lives in Waldorf, Maryland now. Best taxidermist on planet Earth. He doesn't even do it anymore. Now he works for an elevator company.
Yeah, it's a lost art.
He's doing way more money.
Dying trade.
Do you have any fish mounted?
2. I caught a 25-inch brown trout. It was my birthday. It was March 5th. It was very windy, wind knots, wicked, 2-pound test. It's starting to get dark, and with a little live chub. And he's peel and drag like mad, and a little 5-foot Fenwick rod, and the kite string I had for backing. The kite string came out through the guides, going out down into the water, disappearing into... I said, I'm never going to land this fish. This ain't going to happen. He got stuck a few times. I opened it. He swam out of there, I don't know how many times. I got him right in front of me, and he went like into the brush on the side. It was March 5th. The water was Arctic. Guess whose fat ass jumped in the water to get him? The pictures of me holding up the trout. I ain't lying. I had a denim coat on, and from here down, boots, wallet, keys, into the water. For a reason. I landed him in the whole story of the kite string. And the biggest bass I ever caught, I caught my cast net at 3 o'clock in the morning, wham, back in the day. And I held him up, and he almost broke my wrist because he was green. And I thought, I got to have him mounted. Oh, my God, it's the biggest bass I ever saw in my life. Ow! And then I thought, no, I can't, because then all your friends are going to say, oh, where did you catch him on? I caught him in a net. A net! No, I had to let him go.
What were you cast netting for?
Herring.
Oh,
Take to the
herring.
canal first. So I got to the canal, made my second cast, got a 33-pound bass. So, you know, I was good, man. You know, thank you. It don't always work out that way, you know. Sometimes it does.
So you did a lot of surf fishing too on the Outer Cape?
Yeah, Provincetown. I came to really fall madly in love with fishing with needlefish, black and purple. After hours needlefish, you made the best plugs I ever saw. Nat Piazzi, he fished Provincetown for 50 years. God rest his soul. He's a really good guy. He wasn't really warm to me at first, but it took a while. And yeah, he's a really good man. And John Gibbs became a good friend of mine. And between the two of them, they taught me how to fish with rigged eels and how to really sharpen the hooks and coiling the rigged eel into the Cool Whip container, a little butter container, and filling it with water and putting it in the freezer. And late in the fall, when it gets really hard to find eels, you know, and you can't find eels, you know, you're getting kind of destitute about it. And that's when you really, really, really want the eel. Just take them out of the freezer and let them thaw. By the time you get to where you're going, you could just kind of break the ice, put them. Don't forget that you put one in the waiter. Oh,
I always
put
do.
your waders in the wife's new car in the trunk. Oh, God, no. Yeah, I know all that stuff, too. You ain't singular and haven't done it.
The people at Z-Man Fishing have been dedicated to ignoring the book on traditional lure making, instead setting out to create truly category-defining lures, soft baits, and jig systems that simply catch fish. At Z-Man, authentic innovation remains a badge of honor, recognized and admired by countless fans worldwide. I'm one of those fans. I've fished countless Z-Man products in both fresh and salt, from their chatterbaits to their soft plastics made from a material they call Elastec. Some of the most naturally acting, durable soft baits I've ever fished. I've caught PBs on their smallest baits, like on a massive brown trout, choked a micro finesse TRD while targeting smallies, to hooking giant tarpon and redfish on their diesel minnows, which are also phenomenal striper baits. The best part is, when bluefish show up, they'll hold up to them too. Give them a look at zmanfishing.com or ask for them at your local shop.
Rigged eel fishing, I had a Conaflex rod. CMS converted it to like a, I don't know, I think it was like 9 feet, 5 inches or something, but like a real pool cue, what I wanted. Back in the day, we didn't have braided line. You know, I'm old. I am. And we used Cortland Micron 30 or 50. It holds a lot of water. You cast, it sprays, you know, you get the moisture coming off of it. But Albright knot and about 10 feet of Andy tournament green line. Yeah, I like that, really love that line. In cold weather, it didn't do well. Its molecular structure would make it real springy, real slinky-like, you know. Berkeley Big Game was the first surf line that, even in cold weather and, you know, around Halloween, it would still and stay straight for you, you know. You know, that was the first one. Maxima Ultra Green, very good line. I think the best line we got now is the Invisex by Seagar. You know, it's pretty pricey, but man, that's really good stuff. And the stuff I fished with this morning, Cortland 131 braided line. You have one main line, you have 13 braided lines that wrap around. If you close your eyes and tune into what you're doing, you're trying to roll the line between your fingers, you realize, wow, this stuff is like perfectly round and really silky smooth. Yeah, it's pretty pricey, you know, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
You know, it'll shoot out of the guides in absolute silence, and with a big fish peel and drag, absolute silence in there, you know, no dragging line. Oh, and with Power Pro Max Quattro Blue, it's a 4-braid. It's not an 8-braid, you know, like Super Slick, you know, V2 with, and really tiny, tight. Man, that stuff is dynamite. I use that frogging for bass in Florida. And I use a Sharpie. I blacken like the last 10 feet of the line. Use the Palomar knot right to the frog. It's the only time you don't use no leader. Mm-hmm. You know, pliers, bend up the hooks so it comes off the frog just a little bit. Spread the hooks a little bit. Oh, that frog fishing where I live in Florida, man, that is just lights out.
What's your favorite frog?
A lot of frogs, they load up with water. You constantly squeezing the water. Live target makes a really nice frog, and the shell's pretty thin. No, it's an easily collapsible. And if you're going to fish with frogs or bass, and you want to catch the biggest bass in the pond, you ask me, what color should I use? White or black? They stand out. You know, you go swimming in a pond, you're under the water, and you look up at the surface, what color do you see? Green. What color's all the weeds? Green. What color's the frogs? Green. And then they tell me, oh, the fish was smacking at it. You couldn't catch it. No, man, it was you. You know, you need something to stand out so he can find that frog. Otherwise, they just keep smacking at it, and they can't get it. You know, but you got to get in the swimming pool with all your lures. I know that raises eyebrows, but that's okay. You know, do everything there is to do so that you catch. You know, you get in the water and get in the pool. I'll confess to it. You know, you're all going to laugh at me. 2 o'clock in the morning, you got to hold on to the ladder so you don't keep floating to the top. Have your buddy drop a black frog into the pool. You're 5 feet underneath looking up at it. You can't believe how good you can see a black frog. 2 o'clock in the morning. Do it. The white frog, oh, dude, plain as day, I can see it, you know. And I think the best frog is the river to sea. And they have Fat Matt Daddy, you know, the Ish Monroe frog. They're all the same size. They're 3/4 of an ounce. And then they got the Bully Wah series. They got the 55 and the 65 with a golden belly on it, the Matt Allen, the Allen frog. That's a very good frog. And then there's others, you know. But, you know, when you see them weeds really choked up and there's an open hole, it can be the size of this table. Come on. You know, you don't have to be a fisheries biologist to realize there's a tank living here, like an Abrams tank in this honey hole. How can I catch him? So choked with weeds, it's impossible. That's when you go to the frog. And the drag, hammer it. Don't give him an inch. Nothing. War. 8 foot meat, we keep laughing. Cast beyond the honey hole, hold the rod tip high. You need a gear ratio of at least 7.3 to 1. Skedaddle that frog right up to the edge. Pause for a second. Focus on what you're doing. Focus. Okay, pull him into the honey hole. Pop, pop, freeze. Boom! And then just rip him out. And that crank, that big, you'll find out why. Yeah, now you're talking them. And you rip them in. Keep laughing. Look in my live well.
Yeah, you're big on the big pond shiners too. When I called you earlier this week to talk about getting you in here, you were on a mission to find the biggest
Giant golden horse
shiners.
shiners.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like heat-seeking missiles. I love fishing with them. In Florida, when you're in the boat, in Florida anyway, you know, I live in Cape Coral. All of a sudden, one day I was with my friend Carl, and I looked to the side, like something caught my eye, and I'm looking down the well, like, what's that? And at first, I didn't know what it was. It was the very tippity tip of their tails. And it's almost like a translucent white. And they're undulating. It's like undulating, sitting there, and they're all undulating like this. And then all of a sudden, they all started to move off. And then it's when it hit me. That was a whole school of giant golden horse shiners. mean, that was like 300 of them, you know. You know, they cast them. It's like trying to cast a pogey, you know. They don't cast too good. But just take them and just flip them over the side of the boat, you know, and feeding them the line. And you're feeding the line, they're right out of your, oh, the feeling, the jolt. I call it the jolt. Right out of your fingers. Oh, my God, man, your heartbeat is jacked. Jacked. Is it fun? Oh, yeah. That's what it's all about. The biggest jolt I ever felt in my life, I was scuba diving the Shipwreck off Monomoy. And it was the first time I ever dove on it, solo. And it was the third week of June. We were taking the boat from Katuitt all the way around. I was like, I don't know, 70, 80 mile boat ride to North Truro, to White's College Village there in North Truro on 6A. I was just getting ready to jump in the water, and I was on the back. You know, you need 3 things to accomplish what you're doing here. Yeah, you do. Desire, focus, confidence. I don't mean cocky, that's different. Confidence. And it was my first time solo on the Shipwreck. And just before I jumped off, I swear to God in Holy Bible on my mother's grave, every word of this is true, this humpback whale blew its stack off the back of the boat. Oh, stink. Oh my God. Horrible.
Yeah, I've actually
And
experienced
he's
that.
Jimmy Jones. He's yelling at me. Get in with him. What do you mean, get in? You never said nothing about swimming around with whales. Get in with him. And I'll be honest. I'm brutally honest. You know, I was going to do anything not like to fail, not like let them down. You know, that I can hang with the big dogs. And this is my first solo dive. So I got up and stepped off. And we always had a granny line going from the stern of the boat to the bow because the current up Monomoy is like ripping. And you're pulling yourself and you're against the bottom of the boat, pulling. Your tank is banging the bottom. All right, I got halfway down the ankle line. And I was breathing hard. And I'm looking around like a big fat turkey the day before Thanksgiving. Oh, God. You know, where is he? I know he knows I'm here. And then all of a sudden, I saw this big white thing going by me. And it looked like a white canoe, but upside down, like point, you know, the fluke. And it was going right, and the eyeball had already gone by it. I didn't even, but you couldn't see it because it was like a train in a field in the fog, and it's going by. Like, you can't see nothing. And when I got to the bottom, I kept looking around like, where is he? Where is he? And I never saw him. And there's like 2 metal boxes where the drive shafts come from the engines. And this metal box, and the first dive I ever did, Jimmy Jones got a lobster over 10 pounds out of that hole. And I saw the honey hole. And I didn't know if there was anything in it. So I took my Balco sub spear gun made in Greece. I put it down, and I swam around, and I turned my flashlight on, I put it down, and then I started swimming hard right for the hole. I didn't know there was anything in it yet. But there was, we're going to get it on. I know, good Lord have pity on my soul. And at the last second, I flipped the light up into the hole as I'm pulling right into it. And all I could see was these giant claws open it up. Oh, God, no. I reached in and I grabbed him, and my thumb, put your elbow up, my thumb went right in there, and I just held him down. And he's trying to bite. He's really trying to, the thumb, and the other hand's coming over to get me. And I slapped it down, and I got the elbow at the other hand. But then they take their tail, and they tuck their tail into the sand, and their 8 legs like brakes, stick them in the sand, and that Carapus, it's got that spike on it like a helmet. Well, that spike, up into the ceiling. And you can't, it's like you got a football helmet. And you could put your hand behind it and pull really hard. He ain't coming out, dude. It ain't gonna work. So you gotta take your hand, get your hand up, and every time you push his head, his Carapus, every time you put, the spike pops out. Every time it pops out, he comes out 3 or 4 inches, the spike goes back in. So you're playing this cat and mouse game. This going on for a while. When I said earlier, your hot beats jacked, jacked, jacked. You pull them out. I spun him around just like you taught me, grabbed him by the tail where it joins the Carapus, and it was the biggest jolt I ever felt in my life. What did I really? I said to myself, when I get to the surface, like the Joker and Batman, when Jack says, "Wait till they get a load of me." I got to the ankle line. You can't let this big giant monster anywhere near the ankle line. He gets anywhere near that ankle line, whoosh, he's got it. And now you're 30 feet off the bottom, and it's another 40 feet to the boat, and he's got a death grip on the ankle line. You got a situation, quick. Yeah. Don't let him put the rope, go between your legs, lay your chest forward on the rope. And it isn't easy. Let me see you relax now. Try to be calm. Don't come up any faster than your smallest bubbles. And just slowly keep creeping yourself up without looking at your gauges. You got to hold on to the rope and you got to hold on to him. No fastening your smut, just keep. When I got up next to the boat, I was pretty confident now. And I took my open hand as I'm drifting by the side of the boat. I'm taking my open hand. I'm pounding my hand on the boat. Do not take the regulator out of your mouth. You got to swallow a couple of big slugs of monomoy icy green water. Man, you don't know what vomit is until you do that. Do not take that regulator out of your mouth. And all of a sudden, he leaned over the side of the boat looking like, what's that noise? And he looked at me like, why you back up so fast? What's the matter? And I lifted up the lobster like this by the claws. And of course, he was like, whoa! And I said, do you think it's 10 pounds? And he goes, way over 12. And I was like, yes, yes. And it was over 14 pounds.
Wow.
How did I feel about that? I felt just like that peasant boy. What was his name? Arthur. How did Arthur feel when he pulled the sword from the stone? Yeah. Hey,
It's
I'm
good
gonna
stuff.
tell Andy when you're ready.
Hey, tell us about
Andy,
the.
no, I got one.
Okay.
Provincetown, Commercial Street.
Yeah.
Drive down Commercial Street. When you get to the very end, you got Provincetown Inn on the left-hand side, where Marvin Hagler used to train for his fights. When you make that corner, there's the jetty that goes straight out to Wood End Lighthouse. You can see Wood End Lighthouse off in the distance. At the corner, you turn right and make the corner. When you make that corner, there's a little man-made, perfectly round, like saltwater pool. Looks like it's like a round backyard pool, but bigger than that, but not much bigger. All right. Go get your quahog basket. Leave your quahog rake at home. You won't need that. Get in the water, fan the sand, bring a crowbar with you, a big one. Because after you fan away some sand, you'll just sit there. You're going to go get your camera. You won't even do it. You'll be like stupid. I never seen quahogs packed in like that in my life. You need a crowbar to get the first one out. Then you can forget the basket. You could fill a drum with one hole. I'm telling you. And that other little salt marshy thing behind it, it's full of Arkansas shiners and chubs.
Really?
And that little jetty, you go right into the corner of the jetty, that marsh, all the sea worms you want right there. And if you're on Nauset Beach and you wonder, where can I get sea worms? The native natural worms, they're pink. They don't have pinchers like Maine worms, but don't think he won't blast you. Oh, he'll get you. And they're pink. Go to the end of Nauset Beach, to the cut. Go there at dead low tide. Put your waders on. Get a little bucket, like a 2-gallon. You only need a little bitty one. You don't need a great big one. And right at like the way the curves in, get right in the middle of the curve at the end. And the sand's gonna get down to the water. Get down in the water like you'll be like knee deep and put your knees just like this so the water's just like this in front of you. Spread your legs a little bit and stick your fingers in the sand, pull it together, and push it between your legs. You'll have about 50 gazillion big chubs, creek chubs, and silver sides and everything right behind you. And just keep sticking your hand in the sand, pulling it together, and pushing it between your legs. And all of a sudden, the sand wall in front of you will start to collapse because you're undermining it. Just keep doing it and doing it. You ain't got to dig like a gopher, man. You ain't got to dig that hard. And then all of a sudden, sticking out of the sand as it's collapsing will be these wild, Nauset, pink native worms sticking out of the sand. A boatload of them. Pluck them out, put them in the bat. This like the easiest, dumbest, like an 8-year-old could be the grandmaster in no time. Then an 8-ounce pyramid sinker, about a 24, even a 30-inch leader, a Kaylee hook. You know they designed those things in 1880 to get beyond the rubbery lips of the haddock and get them up in the roof of the mouth.
So they were designed for haddock initially?
Yeah, I've seen commercially tied haddock rigs often use Kale hooks.
A Jersey doodlebug float there. You want to float it up off the bottom, otherwise you'll be catching all these
The crabs.
skate bigger than this table, like scary monsters, one after another. And take an 8-pound sledgehammer and pound that sand spike pound it. I suppose you could keep chasing the tide, not so much, but once I pounded the spike, I just left it there. And if the bass hits and you miss, you'll know because the doodlebug float will be pushed down the line like 10 to 12 inches or so. You miss it. If it's a bluefish, well, I don't have to tell you what it's going to look like if he chomps on it. And lights. I used to, well, old man again, but I used to go to Radio Shack. You go to Radio Shack and they had, this was another great winter project, get some wooden clothespins, get some, silicone caulking, and they had these little N-sized batteries, cases. And a little bitty thing about this long, nothing, and the N battery. And the battery is 1.5 volts. And then they had a little package, and it was like 79 cents back in the day, and it had a 1.5 volt bulb with 2 wires. I don't know, the wires are like 5 inches long or something like that. And we would solder the wires to the end of the end, and you just pop the Radio Shack batteries was the only batteries with the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, and they last forever. And you just pop it in, and a little piece of black electrical tape, and in the dark, it looks like if somebody's smoking a cigarette in the dark, and they hit a big drag off it, the way that it glows, you would clamp that onto the back of the rod and put it in the rod pipe. You could walk 100 yards away from the rod and turn around and look, and it's just sitting there like that glowing cigarette. And once you get a strike and the rod starts bouncing, I mean, you'd see that 300 yards away on them things. When you set the hook, sometimes it would pop off, and it landed in the sand behind you. You turn around and see it, and other times you go on the beach. You haven't fished this hole in a couple of years, and there's one of yours from a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? Honest to God, And they lasted forever. I used to use, the little Siloom light sticks. Yeah. And if you packed them in ice, put them in the cooler, you could get 2 nights out of them. But that was the Radio Shack thing. I'm sure there's some place you could go online and look for stuff, and you could recreate this again. I don't even think Radio Shack's in business anymore. I don't know about them. But Nauset Beach, man, what a beautiful place to go fishing.
So fishing the worms with kind of that, like you said, the Jersey float, the doodlebug float rig. I know guys do that. It seems like that's kind of losing popularity. I've heard another guy who works here, Bill Dean, talked about one of the beaches he drives on the Cape Cod Bay side, where people do that and catch big, like surprisingly big bass.
Yeah, he got his biggest bass of his lifetime on a sea worm.
Did he? I didn't even know that.
Sandy Neck Beach. Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, it's an easy meal for them, and the floats gets it above the crabs, right? Is that the main purpose of the float?
Oh, yeah. Skates, again. Big as your kitchen table, and of course, if you're that poor slob ghetto clown that catches one of these, monstrosity, your buddies are all ripping into you. I mean, they're all belly laughing. It's almost as bad as catching another seagull, and they were always flying into the line. And it happens. It's part of it, you can't get mad at any. It's part of it, the good, the bad, the sweat, the bugs all biting you, and, the ticks and everything. You still keep doing it.
Tell us about the toilets. This is a good story.
Oh, yeah. I'd heard about the toilets in Provincetown, and I asked other guys, but you'd think that I was asking them to divulge the secret to the hydrogen bomb, Oh, knock it off, will you? And this really happened one day. We were over by we were over in the area of Heron Cove Beach, and I got this guy, a real good friend, Tommy Gallagher. Tommy Gallagher now lives in Brewster. Used to live in Rainham. I'd like to kick his ass because he lives in Brewster and I don't. But anyway, I had a 20-foot Seahawks. I mean, I had a small boat, but I'll tell you what, a lot of lobsters met their demise in that Seahawks. And he's at the bow of the boat, and all of a sudden he goes, "Hey, what's all them white square things on the bottom?" What? I ran up to the bow of the boat, and I looked over the boat, and I could see these white toilet tanks, the back of the toilet. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, "Get out of the way!" I grabbed the anchor, and I took the anchor, and I threw it at the toilet. And there I am feeding line off, and I'm patting him on the back. Yeah, And when I suited right up and jumped over. And when I got to the bottom, they were, the dump in Wellfleet, the dump guy, he put all the toilets off to the side for these guys. And Paul and Tom, real gentlemen fishermen, lobstermen, gentlemen. And I wish they were my neighbors today. Really rock solid guys. And he'd call him up and tell him he had a boatload of lobster toilets for him. And of course, they get down there lickety-split quick and give him a big cooler full of big fat lobsters. And they take the toilets apart, and they take the guts out of the tank. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to follow the story. You get where the bank comes up off Provincetown onto Shank Painter sandbar. They come up over the sandbar, and you go about 20, maybe 25 yards over the bank onto the flat and drop a whole bunch of toilets in a pile and throw the anchor at it. Then they get down there and they stretch them out. Here's the bank coming up over, and they scatter the toilets all 10, 12 feet apart in a string shot. And they got the GPS for the front and the back, the end. And, whatever way the tide's going, jump in, because you can't really commercially make any money diving for lobsters. Sometimes the thermocline's down to 80 feet. But you'll get a lot of females with eggers and a lot of small males certain times of the year to go to the toilets. And there they are. They back right into the tank, and they're in there hanging out.
It's all sand out there. There's no place for them
Sometimes
to
there's
hide.
one in the toilet bowl hole. Think of that when you're munching on lobsters in Provincetown. And they go underneath the toilet. And then another one in the bottom of the toilet where, the beeswax ring,
Yeah, the seal.
You can get, and you'll get a lot of lobsters that way. A lot. Fast. And not burn any air on the tank. But truth be told, if you want a big giant lobster, scary, like make you nervous when you see him in that hole back then. And he's not out in the bank just walking around like some dope. Yeah, you got to go to Monomoy. You got the bullseye. I got all my money, all my chips. I am all in to go to the wreck of the Perky Omen. It sank in 1886. I got portholes off it. Again, dishes, china. I got the Constant Revolution counter off it. a bilge pump off it. You know, it's got 1873 New York and a street address to the company that made the, and when I took it all apart, it was like, had lumps of coal inside it. I don't know, there's something about it. It's in like 55, 60 feet of water, perky omen. And it got a lot of sea bass in the bow, small codfish everywhere, little choggies everywhere. And if it's outgoing tide, if it's a flood tide and outgoing, you drift off, and you drift off a couple 100 yards. There's another big piece of shipwreck sitting out in oblivion out there. And I was never able to get on it, or I'm dragging on the grapple hook, just dragging across the bottom. And there I am swimming, pulling the hook like I'm going to pull a 25-foot center console, you know, a distance, and I'd see it, and I could never drift a hook into it. There's where you get a porthole today, something like that, you know. But I got like a porthole off of every one of them, at least one. The really beautiful portholes are the ones that come from the Horatio Hall. They had battle storm covers, and they had storm covers on the shipwreck, the Alva. The Alva sank July 23rd, 1892. It was ran by the Dimmick. It was owned by Cornelius Vanderbilt. It had a sister ship, the Tarantula. It sank off Long Island in 110 feet of water. And the Alva, it had 16-inch and 12-inch portholes in the bedroom windows. Portholes, they're rectangular, they're square. I got one of each. And on the round portholes in the 7 o'clock position, it says stamped into the metal, J as in John, you know, J period, Roby, Maker, Rainhill, near Liverpool. You know, the ship was built in Bath, Maine between 1882 and 1885. And Percy and Small Shipyard, they're still there today building ships to this day. And it was, took him 3 years to build it. He had six mates on it and 36 crew members. They were coming back from Bar Harbor, Maine. They were ran by the Dimmick, and they called the captain of the Dimmick Heavy Weather Harry, because no matter how bad the weather was, Harry gonna be on time, kill everybody in the process, pounding the snot out of them, you know.
Where is that wreck?
Which one? Oh, they're all off Alva I've been talking
Alva.
about.
Okay.
You'd be surprised some of the stuff you find in Provincetown Harbor. You get in Provincetown Harbor where the break wall is, because they can't shuck scallops inside or clean fish inside. They have to stay outside. So you see this big steel tank of a boat, and he's drifting, barely moving because he drafts so much water. And they were all shucking scallops. I would pull up to him and I would ask him, hey, I'll trade you lobsters for scallops, man. That's pan-seared scallops, the favorite thing to eat, you know? You know, and he would look at me and say, I really would. I'd like to. I would, but I can't. I can't do it, especially here, you know? I'm like, there's nobody around us. I can't do it, you know? So one day I was wondering, what's it like to dive here? And it's like 26 feet deep. I jumped overboard. I'm like, what's happening to all this seed that these guys are shucking here all over the place?
Yeah, it's going to be a big chum slick.
So I jumped overboard, and it was 26 feet deep. And I looked at the Long Point Lighthouse, and I knew that the bank would drop and drift down and get deeper and deeper. And at about 38 feet deep, it starts to get like really mucky, oozy, you know, kind of looking like the moon. And anything that would be there would just be at the bottom of the ooze. You're not going to find it. So I turn around and follow the compass and start coming back, but zigzagging the whole time. And you get like 25 feet of water, everything's getting pretty bright, and you're not seeing scallops, pie plates, hundreds of them. First time I did it, I had a Todd 30-gallon live well in the fib fab, and I filled it right to the brim. You couldn't even close the lid. They're like bulging out of it, you know. Having more fun than any human being should be allowed to have, you know? And then you go back to the cottages and all your friends and everything, and all the guys that gave up again, you gave up too late, you know? You didn't stick it out and try something different. You know, the tide isn't right, the moon isn't right, the bass, and you packed it up and went home. And there's other guys. They will, you know them, and we all know them. They will walk uphill 2 miles in a howling gale, like life-threatening, to go get one more cast. And that's the guy. Everybody says he's lucky. He's so lucky. It's always him. He's always the one always getting them. It's not him. It's not luck. Get over it. It's preparedness and opportunity meeting. And then he gave him a can of whoop ass, and you packed it up and went home back on the porch like a little dog, and your buddy didn't. And you got your ass spanked one more time.
Everglades Boats is an industry leader in premium offshore fishing boats. Founded in 1997 by boating industry legend and former Boston Whaler executive Bob Doherty, Everglades revolutionized the boat building industry with the invention of the ram cap process for one-piece unsinkable hulls. Respected for its renowned hull ride, Everglades builds center console and hybrid boats from 25 to 45 feet that make a statement about the status and savvy of their owner. Everglades has received numerous industry awards and achieved an unparalleled reputation for superior safety, performance, and quality. For more information about Everglades Boats, stop by your local dealer or visit evergladesboats.com. Everglades Boats, built for beyond.
Whiffle Bat. The little kids, Whiffle Bat. Get yourself a Whiffle Bat. You're not a real fisherman if you don't have at least 3 of them in the trunk of the in the back of the truck. You got to have them. You take a Whiffle Bat and you're going to cut off the end of it. Yeah, the plastic toy Amazon $3.99 Whiffle Bat. Cut the end of the Whiffle Bat off with a hacksaw. Get a can of that great stuff expanding foam at Lowe's or Home Depot. You know, it's that closed cell foam, gets hot as a rock. All you builder guys, you all know what this stuff is. Spray it down, put the little straw tube on it. You're going to spray it down inside the Whiffle Bat. But you want to leave like the last 8 or 10 inches or so of empty Whiffle Bat. And when you look down the throat of the Whiffle Bat, you'll see that closed cell foam. The bat's now going to float like a wine cork. You won't lose it. And you'll have the thing forever, no matter how goofy you are. Okay. You can take mackerel, pogies, cut them in chunks, just wide enough to stuff it down the cannon, the Whiffle Bat. I know there's Chum Slingers out there, yeah, and they suck. The bore is too big. When the chunks or the bait come out of the end of that, it's like a shotgun with cylinder bore. It just, bam, it's too much. With the Whiffle Bat, it's like a full choke on a shotgun. It's going to hold the pattern really tight for a long distance, and the pokey mackerel chunks, they'll come flying out of the end of that Whiffle Bat as far as most of you can cast, and then some. You won't be able to reach it. It'll come out of that Whiffle Bat like a cannon. What, you doubt this? Think about yourself at Fenway Park at home plate throwing a baseball. Maybe you could peg it really good. Now take the baseball and put it in a lacrosse stick and throw it. Now all of a sudden you're throwing it over the green monster like nothing. Same thing, just a smaller scale. And you can shotgun, really peg out them pieces of bait with a Whiffle Bat. And in freshwater fishing, in Wareham, the Narrows restaurant, about 600 yards up the road, salt marsh, big pipe going under the ground into another salt marsh, and then a railroad tracks, another pipe. I had 3 chub traps. I would set them over there. I used bread. I used to use cat food, mussels in the bottom of a bucket with a baseball bat, making a hell of a mess. You know, guts all over the place. Nothing, the bread works just fine. You know, then run back to the Narrows restaurant and eat your scrambled eggs like fast. Because you got to boot it back, because once that bread's all eaten up, they're trying to get the hell out of that trap. And when you pull the trap out, you know, throw it out, and the way the bank is undercut and the grass is hanging over, pull that trap up underneath, and that's where all the chubs are. They're not out in the middle and hide that trap under the cut bank.
So chubs. I not to interrupt, but for most in New England, they call the chubs mama chugs. Like we call them
Yeah.
killies in Jersey and Long Island, or just minnows. But up here, they call them chubs. Not to be confused with like creek chubs that you get in freshwater. These are the brackish water, the little marsh, the mama chugs.
Yeah. And I had a long-handled net. I live in Cape Coral, Florida now. I've been living there for 13 and a half years. But I used to take the long-handled net with a fine mesh, and it had an extended handle. I got it from Bass Pro Shop. It was like $26. I had the thing for almost 20 years. And around them concrete pipes, all them big boulders, the riprap to support the railroad tracks. To put the net in the water and start tapping the stones. And the grass shrimp just start popping out of the cracks of the stones, and just keep moving that net in a figure 8 and put them in a bucket. Don't put any water in the bucket. You'll kill them. They'll turn a bone white color, and, they're stone dead and not effective. Well, you take them trout fishing, like Gull Pond or Wellfleet or Sheep Pond, Brewster, Harwich, any pond you want to go to, any pond. And again, load the cannon with a bunch of grass shrimp, grab a handful of them mummy chog creek chubs, give them a squeeze. Don't squeeze the guts right out, no, but squeeze them enough so that you're hurting them. You're hurting them. Load the cannon. Hold the cannon up, 2 thumbs, into the pond. Do it a couple times. Oh, the grass shrimp, they can't swim for nothing. They're all up on the surface, dimpling. I mean, it's like ringing the dinner bell. The brookies, the browns, the rainbows, the tiger trout, the bass, smallies, everybody's coming to dinner. And they start smacking at everything in front of you. I mean, it's going to take less than 2 seconds. Grab a fat chub, like a number 10 hook, little bitty hook, little chub. You don't need a big monster. Remember, elephants eat peanuts, right? Throw it right into the middle of the mayhem. 1, 2, you're on. You're on. He's on. We're reeling in triples. I mean, and the guys, they stand off next to you in the distance. You can hear them saying, over the sound of the water, "Those guys are using live bait." Yeah, we are. We got a boatload of it. Come over here. I'll share it with you. Not one guy ever came over to take some free bait, live bait. Not once. Not once. Never. They just stand over there talking trash,
Yeah,
You
so
didn't do the work.
fishing bait is.
You didn't do the work. You
lost art.
you didn't hustle, getting bitten by bugs, swatting, swearing, cursing Andy,
That takes work, man. To go out and get that much bait, to have enough to chum and then fish with. I've done the grass shrimp chumming thing from boats. I've never tried it from shore. I will try that from shore.
Epic.
That sounds...
Because then you can have, a grill, and if you got a little barbecue grill, whatever one you want to bring, and take some kids fishing with you, You got to teach these kids about this fishing stuff, and you got to show them all your secret weapons. Don't take it to the grave with you, Teach them so when long after you're gone, there's somebody here to care about, the fish, the frogs, all of it, all of it. Even the big, fat, nasty crab, somebody's got to look out for them. No, I mean that. And long after you're gone and you're worm food, he'll be talking about you. I want to tell you the most fun I ever had fishing.
Yeah.
The best day I ever had. Me, Jerry Enos, God bless you. Paul Schultz. Paul lives in Edgartown. Paul Schultz is the godfather guru of striped bass fishing. He forgot more than I know. And he said to me, in his living room, he had this big map of the vineyard, and he had this weather station, and these lights to show you which way the wind's blowing. Like, you're in the living room looking around like a mad scientist. And Paul's lived on the vineyard since 1962. You know, only time he left the vineyard was to go to Vietnam. Anyways, he took us fishing, and he said to me before we left the house, "Are you ready?" Yeah, I think I'm ready. He said, "We're gonna open a can of whoop ass on him tonight. I'm telling you, we're gonna get him." And hearing that come out of his mouth, oh yeah, I'm fired up. Let's go. And we went to Dogfish Bar. It was dark. I'd never been there before in my life. Never. And in the dark, from a distance, I remember squinting and everything. I can't see nothing. Like, it's dark. And he's yelling, "Coop." Cooper Giltz was there. But he just recognized his silhouette. He was fly fishing. And a quick handshake. "Good luck to you. Good luck." And B, Jerry, and Paul Schultz. Another kid was there too, Bob McKay. And we were using favorite swimming plug ever, yellow Rebel with the red head. And I had a black red gill teaser, I don't know, 30 inches or so above it. And we were getting doubles. And the three of us that got doubles, we were reeling in 2 bass at a time. 2 bass at a time. Three of us. And, well, this doesn't sound really macho, but I got really goofy. Like I was delirious. Like this like isn't real. Like you're trying to start to make little short casts and see if you can still get double, and you do. I mean, just little, and I took my 2 fish and threw it on top of Jerry's 2 fish, and he's bending over trying to unhook the fish, and I threw mine on top of his to make a giant ball mess. And as he's bent over, cussing and swearing, he was dropping more F-bombs on me than Gordon Ramsay on a mean day. As he's bent over, I'm doing this to him. I'm bumping him with my hips. My hands up in the air. It was that happy, all right? And nothing else would make you that happy. Not that goofy. Oh, we got back to Paul's house. I don't know, it was 11:30, midnight, like kind of early for us to get back. And we got back to his house. And I had made, for lunch that day, I cooked the spaghetti and the meat sauce and the sausages and the garlic bread. And now we're like starving. And we're heating it up again, you know, and we're sitting in the living room. And he opened the windows, and it's like Halloween. And it was a cold steam pouring out of your nostrils. It was cold. But when you're catching fish like that, you ain't cold no more. And he lit the potbelly wood stove. He lit it and had the door open and the flames, you know. And, you know, I just looked at them guys like, I'll never forget this day.
How many fish did you catch that night?
105.
He was keeping count, right?
I didn't keep count, but he did.
Yeah.
You know, 105.
That's impressive.
And then all of a sudden, it stopped. And he said, "It's over." I'm like, "We're not going to get any more?" And he just knew, you know. He just knew we ain't going to get any more. Yeah. And that was the end of that. But, yeah, that was the best fishing day I ever had.
Bill, what's the biggest fish you ever hauled out of the surf?
Dorset. Worm.
On a worm.
On a worm.
Elephants eat peanuts.
I had a 11-foot. I caught him on a 11-foot white Lemaglass blank. I had a Shimano BTF 6500 reel. And I remember, oh, thank God, I had like 5 rods set out, you know, like in a real spread. But, you know, what you're looking for when you're on the beach is you're looking, you know, if you could draw it out on a drawing board, you want that outer sandbar, and you want a hole, like a D8 bulldozer, punch the hole through that sandbar, and you want the shingle of the beach that you're standing on, to really, really drop down, and to have broken shells on it, and to drop straight down like that, because then it goes straight down. There's that hole in front of you, and you look out, even in the dark, and in the water, you can just read it, just kind of, it's not rolling. If the beach just goes really flat, goes off, it's all sandbar up in front of you. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. And if off on the outer bank, if it's a little bank and it drops down, a little shelf, it don't have to be huge, a little shelf to drop down, and you're casting out your bait and you feel it land, and pull it down and tune into it and you'll feel it drop off that little bank, and then pull it a couple feet, like a pokey head, a mackerel head, them eyes to give it that target, and let it sit right. That's where you spike it right there. Now you're in the bullseye. You know what I mean? You want to be in that hole. Reading the beaches, that's really critical. To have dead low tide, to be hunting, always on that move, hunting, looking for that honey hole, looking for that bullseye. And if you're plugging, be fan casting and keep moving. Keep changing plugs, trying to find, I see other guys, man, they carry like 88 pounds of gear. I don't do that. I don't. I bring like 6 plugs. I'll bring some tins, fluorocarbon. No, I keep it kind of really sparse. I don't bring a whole boatload of stuff. I bring what I believe in. If it's really dark night, dark plugs. You got a really bright full moon, then the white needlefish, then the yellow rubber or the Wonder Bread bomber, really good plug, And one time at a beach in Plymouth, I had a brand new GSB 11-foot Lamaglass graphite surf blank. That's probably the biggest innovation in fishing I ever saw in 1981 when Fenwick came out with the HMG, high modulus graphite. The fibers were developed by NASA scientists, and they still develop them to this day for Loomis and everybody else. They had a brand new Ambassador 7000, and I had Andy Tournament green IGFA line, 20-pound, brand new Rebel, everything. I was with Craig McCrae.
Yep.
I was with Craig. It was.
Another legend of
I look in photo
from the
albums.
surf.
I do. I look in photo albums and I see pictures of the bass. 34 pounds, 39 pounds. I got a work uniform on. I don't even remember them. I don't. What do I remember? I'll tell you what I remember the big dogs I hooked and lost. I remember 3 of them big time. 2 at one honey hole, same spot at Plymouth. 1 off Chappaquiddick, Benito fishing. And I had a little treble hook, and I hooked the biggest live pokey left in the live well. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Pulled the plug on the live well, listening to MVY, jazz on Sunday. And I'm taking the net and I'm scooping up all these bait fish and I'm flinging them overboard. And I just I had a little Ambassador 4600 CB big. And I just gave a little flip up there, but never put the rod down. Never put. I stuck it in the rod holder. Turned around, I'm scooping them up. I'm flinging them over. I'm not even looking. Then behind me I heard, Bill, your rod. I turned around and looked at it. Like if an elastic's between your thumbs, you stretch it, it won't stretch no more. The elastic's loaded.
Yeah.
Rod's loaded. Can't bend anymore. But the drag's not peeling, but it's just pegged over. I picked it up. I started cranking the hill, and it's coming. Just like a giant skate. And that's what I think I got a skate coming in like a boot. And I just kept reeling, and it's coming. And I'm reeling it up, and it's coming. And I said, hey, get the net ready. Here he comes. Here he comes. It feels really heavy. And just to the point where you're going to see it. You're going to get color. You're going to see it. No, the party's over. Speedy Gonzalez took off. The drag went. I didn't even say anything. I turned around and looked back. Boom, he fired up the big motor. His son's at the front pulling up the anchor line. We started in 12 feet of water off a Rudder Point and on Chappaquiddick. We came pulled up to the beach. There was a deer at the water's edge standing there looking at us, turning his head, watching the boat go by, standing on the beach. And we started chasing him. And an hour later, we were in 130 feet of water, and I could see Nantucket really good. And then for the first time, I saw that sickle tail, that hard tail on the water, but the head down, and I could see him, shaking, going by in the water. And then he'd just go and stop. And the captain, who was a really, really world-class scuba diver, but not really a fisherman, he said to me, "Why did he stop?" I said, "Because he's on the bottom. He got no place else to go." Then he'd come back up on the surface. Never turned him once, not once. An hour and 20 minutes into the fight, I turned him for the first time straight under the boat. I said, "He feels like he's 30 feet down." And I started, "Here he comes. Get the net ready. He's coming. He might take off again, but he's coming." And then the rod went, sickening. I wanted to get down on my hands and knees, vomit all over the boat. The rod just went whoosh, straight up. Oh, it's gone. And I reeled in, and the Palomar knot was still there, and the two tags that go through the hook, the two lines, there's 4 lines like this hanging off the bottom of the knot. And I got down, I laid down on the floor like sick to my stomach for about 4 or 5 days after that. And I never saw him. I saw a tail. I called my friend John Gibbs about it the next day. I said, "What do you think?" "What do I think?" He said, "You caught a small bluefin. That ain't no albie. Not with you on it for no." He said, "I seen you fish, man. You put the boots to him, and no." And that time with that 11-foot graphite rod management area with my friend Craig McCrae, I got a little, and I set the hook, but there was nothing there. It happens. You didn't hook up, and I kept moving up and down the sandbar, fan casting, trying different plugs, and needlefish, and rebels, and bombers, and black and purple bomber, great plug, back and forth and everything. And it was a full moon, and you could have read a newspaper on the beach that night. And then when I got back to that same spot, I put the yellow Rebel with the red head back on, and I bombed it out there. I've been fishing a conventional. I never graduated to the spinning. That's still the conventional all my life. And I bombed it, and I'm reeling about the same spot. And I felt the thump, and I set the hook, and he took off. He took off like a rabid baboon on cocaine took off. And the first time in my life, I screamed out to my friend Craig. I'd never said these words before. I said, "He's spooling me, he's spooling." And I meant it. And even though you're not touching the drag, and the arbor to the spool is getting smaller, the drag is increasing exponentially. That's where everybody talks to it and they pop them off. Don't touch the drag. Don't do it. I put a little thumb pressure on, just a little bit more, trying to slow him down. And he was picking up speed. I'm like, "Oh, God." And all of a sudden, the rod went whoosh, straight up. Oh, my God, no. What happened? Where did he go? You got to be home. So I reel for like 10 minutes. I get all the line back. And when I reeled it back, I told you it was full moon. I grabbed the red gilt teaser, and I'm holding it to the moon, looking at it. It's an O'Shaughnessy hook. It's a 34007. It's a 4-rod. Never gonna straighten that out, man. It's stainless steel. And I sharpened that thing. Sticky sharp. Drag it across your thumbnail, and it sticks right into it. It happens. The hook pulled. Or so I thought. It's gonna get a lot worse. A lot worse. Oh, yeah, it does. So my friend Craig says, man, I got to go, you know. And I said, yeah, you know, I'm going to get out of here too. And that was the only hit I got. He never got a sniff. We get back to the truck. We shake hands. Good friends. Good friend. Good fisherman, Craig McCrae. Good guy. And he left. And I'm in the parking lot by myself. I had, at the time, James Scott socking foot waders, not taking the booties off. And I opened the split window. I had a brand new truck. It was only about a month old, you know. And I was going to stick the rod out the window. So I want to take the 7-inch rev so the hooks don't get the crushable lure seats that I had. And here's the punch in the face now from the Ghost. Right in the nose. I take the yellow Rebel, the 7-inch, you know, with the red head off. And I look at the plug. Now you want to get down on your knees and vomit now. The belly hook, 2 of the hooks, peeled wide open. And I never saw him either. Another time, same beach, caught a 23-pounder. Next night, got a 41-pounder. Next night, got a 42-and-a-quarter-pounder. And the next night, same thing. You know, you get to the beach, you don't know what tide to fish. It's either high tide dropping the first 2 hours or dead low first 2 hours coming in. That's not always, but it's a good place to start. If it ain't one tide, it's the other end. All right. To this place, dead low, 2 hours coming in, ringing the dinner bell. And I caught all these bass there like every night, you know. And he was close. You know, I was chest deep in the water, close. Hooked him. And I had a Newell 229. Awesome conventional reel. Cast, beautiful. Makes this beautiful humming, buzzing sound. When
It's
you
a very
cast 'em.
distinctive sound.
But when you're cranking the handle, it's clickety-clackety. And it was the second generation where the seals, the barons were like sealed. And it was like a bulletproof reel, light as a feather, cast like a dream. Penn 525 mag, that cast like a dream. Inexpensive reel. It cast a mile, silky smooth. And Daiwa, always 7HM. You know, blue, single handle, like $510. Cast, smooth, powerful, beautiful reel, and a Trinidad, nice reel. I hooked this fish, and I said to my friends, Jerry Enos, Rick Matosa, I said, this is a 50. I mean, I could feel the power, you know. And I was saying to Rick Matosa, hold it, feel him. I said, it's a 50. And he was cussing and dropping more F-bombs than Gordon Ramsay in a mean day, that it was me again that hooked it. Well, that's the way it went. We were way out on the sandbar, and there's a deep, like a depression in the sand. And at low tide, that big tidal pool was full of sand eels. You'd wade through it, and it was like raining all around you, just thousands of them. You know, when the tide comes up and they can come over the bar in the dock, it's going to be like, here we go. The dinner table is set. I got to fish like 12, 15 feet in front of me. Don't leave the sandbar. Get him in front of you, close. Now start walking him like a bulldog that don't want to walk along with you. He's coming. And I'm walking backwards. And I got the Ziplex, you know. I got the power on them. Yeah, they're heavy. Yeah. But once you hook up to that big fat dog, you pray, you wish you had that Ziplex now. Yes, you do. All right, and he's coming. This is the worst. It don't get any worse than this. I get up on the beach. I'm on the beach. I'm holding the rod always to my left. Because if that hook pulls, that plug pulls, that thing comes flying at your head, you know, in the dark. You know, a 3-ounce data would have trouble. Oh, boy. Here's the worst thing ever. And the hook pulls, and the live eel and the mustard 94150 hook go flying by my face in the dark. I run into the water, I'm running into the water like I'm trying to steal second base in the World Series. I could see this huge brown blob in the water. I'm going to dive on him. I'm going to get spiked in the face with his delta. I don't care. I could see him. And the water's getting deeper and deeper, and he pulled away from me. And I walked back out to my friends, and they're like, is it 50? Is it 50? I said, I lost him on the beach. I got up on the shingle of the beach, and the hook pulled, and the eel and the hook went flying by my face. I believe I wasn't right for a week after that. I wasn't. And that's something that fishing does, with your buddies. It brings together people that can be completely different officers. I talked to you, Andy, about this earlier.
Yeah, I couldn't
Like
agree more.
in the story Moby Dick about Ishmael being a blue blood school teacher, and Queequeg, he's head shaven, heavily tattooed cannibal from Kokomoto Island, and he ate his rival villagers. He's a cannibal, and Captain Ahab is afraid of him because he knows what he's really capable of. And Ishmael and Queequeg become best of friends, and nothing pulls, for lack of a better term, strange bedfellows together like fishing. You can be a brain surgeon and go fishing in the Blue Ribbon Creeks, Hemingway's favorite place to go trout fishing in Montana, with a house painter. The brain surgeon and the house painter, best friends. All they ever talk about is fly fishing, vices, materials, flies. It never ends. And you don't get that with golfing, though, do you? Oh, hell no. Hell no.
All right.
I think that's.
Bill, it's been awesome having you in here. As I said at the beginning, one of the best storytellers I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. Anytime I get a phone call from you, I know I'm not going anywhere for an hour, but I always take it. And we really appreciate you coming in here and talking into the can for us. So thank you very much.